Welcome to my presentation on Egypt. On this slide you can see the flag of Egypt, which has three parallel bars of red, white, and black, with a gold eagle centrally located in the white bar. Also on this slide you can see a hyperlink next to the national anthem, which will take you to a YouTube video where you can view the national anthem of Egypt. The current population of Egypt is approximately 82.5 million people. The capital city is Cairo, and the current government is a republic. Nearly 85% of all Egyptians are Muslim, with the rest being primarily Christians. Egypt is located in the northeastern portion of Africa. It straddles both Africa and Asia, connecting the two continents via the land bridge known as the Isthmus of Suez. Cutting through this isthmus is the Suez Canal, which connects the Mediterranean Sea with the Red Sea. Ships are able to traverse this canal to travel between the Atlantic Ocean and the Indian Ocean without having to go all the way around the southern tip of Africa. Egypt is bordered by Libya in the west, the Sudan in the south, and Israel in the east. Egypt is a large country, but it is mostly comprised of dry, arid deserts with a few scattered oases. The average rainfall for most of the country is less than 1/2 of 1 inch per year. A large portion of Egypt's territory is comprised of the Sahara Desert. Strong winds have sculptured the sands into dunes that may reach more than 100 feet tall. Fierce sandstorms can rage across the deserts, whipping the sand into clouds that can be seen from space and stretch across multiple countries. The lack of precipitation has led to the population of Egypt living nearly exclusively along the Nile River, which flows north from the Sudan to the Mediterranean Sea. This picture shows the concentration of population near the Nile, visible at night by the light pollution. The Nile River has long been the source of life for Egypt and her people. Until 1971, the Nile River would flood every year, blanketing the land that surrounds it with a layer of rich, fertile silt that could be used to grow enough food to feed the populace. In 1971, a dam across the upper portion of the Nile created Lake Nasser and allowed the Nile River to be regulated to provide constant irrigation to farmlands. Near the end of its journey, the Nile begins to slow down and spread its silt in the large river delta, which can be seen in this picture. This fertile river valley has been the center of Egyptian culture for millennia. Egypt has one of the oldest known civilizations on the planet. Approximately 10,000 years ago, the hunter-gatherer nomadic tribes began to domesticate animals and plant grain as a sustainable source of food. Approximately 8,000 years ago, something changed in Egypt. It is unknown if it was due to overgrazing or a climate change, but Egypt's farms and pastures began to undergo desertification, which is the process by which arable land becomes desert. The population had no choice but to move near the Nile River in order to survive. In this photo you can see the sharp line between where the Nile has flooded and food can be grown, and the desert that now makes up most of Egypt. It is estimated that approximately 98% of the 83 million people who live in Egypt are using only about 3% of the total land. The rest is simply too dry to support life. This close relationship that Egyptians have with the Nile has resulted in the river being the main form of transportation for crops, trades, and people. This has persisted even in the art that is being produced in Egypt today. Much of it revolves around the Nile and the impact that it has had on the Egyptians. Due to the limited availability of land on which to grow feed, meat has not traditionally been a large part of Egyptian cuisine. Fish is often eaten along the coast, but many Egyptian recipes revolve around vegetables. Some consider koshari, pictured here, a dish made with rice, lentils, chickpeas, and macaroni to be the national dish of Egypt. Fava beans are also heavily used and are often used to make falafels, which have since spread to most of the Middle East. One of the most important foods in the Egyptian diet is bread. It is eaten at almost every meal, and for some rural families, bread and beans constitute the entire meal. Bread is used as a kind of edible utensil, scooping up sauces and soups and being stuffed with ingredients such as a pita sandwich. Bread is so important to the Egyptians that it has been subsidized by the government since the early 1900s. Archaeologists have discovered that the slaves who built the pyramids were often paid with bread, beer, and onions, which seems to have been the majority of what they had to eat. Another food that is used in many Egyptian meals are beans, which are often mashed into a paste and eaten in a bread shell. Egypt shares many dishes in common with other Eastern Mediterranean cultures, such as rice-stuffed vegetables, grape leaves, and kebabs. The meal pattern in Egypt will start with a light breakfast that will usually contain beans and may also include eggs, pickles, cheese, and jam. Lunch will be very large and will be consumed between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. and is often followed by a nap. Some families have a British-style tea around 5 or 6 p.m., and a light dinner, usually leftovers from lunch, is served later in the evening. A dinner party will often eat much later, with the party not starting until 9 and the meal being served an hour or two later. Due to the heavy Muslim influence on Egypt throughout its history, alcohol is not widely consumed. Instead, Egyptians love to drink coffee, and it is a national tradition. Many local coffee houses are frequented by men who come to drink coffee, smoke the water pipe, play backgammon, and discuss politics. From a nutritional standpoint, an Egyptian diet is remarkably complete. The heavy use of fresh fruits and vegetables and the lack of animal protein results in a diet that is lacking few key nutrients. Two things that do sometimes affect rural families are anemia and mild growth stunting in preschool children. And now it's time for a quiz. Which food is the main staple of Egyptian diet? Bread, fish, olive oil, or vegetables? With the answer, of course, being bread. What beverage are you least likely to find in an Egyptian household? Milk, coffee, fruit juice, or wine? The answer would be wine, and this again stems back to the heavy Muslim influence, as most devout Muslims do not consume alcohol of any kind. What river is the lifeblood of Egypt? Is it the Mississippi River, the Ganges River, the Nile River, or the Thames River? And the answer is the Nile River. Thank you very much for viewing my presentation. I hope you learned a lot, as I know that I did.